Welcome back to AFTV, everyone. Welcome back to the Tactical Insight Show. Things went right towards the end in the Chelsea game, but went very wrong throughout a lot of it. Arsenal still managed to salvage a point at Stamford Bridge. And look, there are positives to take from that for sure, but concerns over the performance. I'm here with Graham to break down what we think went right in terms of Arsenal actually finding a way back into it, like I just alluded to. That isn't to be, we can't just sit here and bash everything. They clearly did something right to a degree, but there are a lot of concerns about how Chelsea nullified our performance and the way we normally play our box midfield. We're going to go into all of it. Just your general reaction to the game in general, a few nights sleep after. How are you kind of feeling about it?
Well, I think overall you have to say that Arsenal showed great resilience to come back and get a point. Because let's be honest about it, James, we weren't particularly good in this game. I thought we were outthought tactically by Pochettino in a real intense, full-blooded London derby. I think we were unfortunate with the goals we conceded. Certainly, I thought the penalty, that's a debate I know we're going to have today. And I thought Mudrik's cross was a fluke. Okay. But we were certainly fortunate, in my opinion, to get a draw. And I thought Chelsea were the better team in the game.
So while the goals were fortunate, and I agree, because you can debate the penalty and the Mudrik goal and all that, whether he meant it. I didn't feel Chelsea were fortunate to be 2-0 up, if that makes sense. I felt their performance had merited a lead against us.
They deserved to be ahead, certainly in the way they played. And I think the reason for that was the way that Pochettino set them up. And I think we went into this game, when we saw the lineups, we were really happy, James. We had our best front three back for the first time this season. So we had Jesus down the middle, Saka back on the right and Martinelli back on the left. So we had, in effect, I think, close to our if not our strongest side. Chelsea, we know, have got injuries. James was missing on the right, Chilwell was missing on the left. Although the two fullbacks that come in, Gusto and Cucurella, I thought had excellent games.
They were brilliant, yeah.
And I thought that Chelsea were good in this game. That Pochettino outfought Arteta, and we're going to talk about the way he did that, stopped Arsenal playing. The conditions, I think, were a little bit of a level in this game because it was very terrible conditions for playing football. I think when Arsenal were trying to build up, they were under-hitting passes. And I think in those conditions where it's very wet, you have to be crisp with your passing. But I thought that generally Arsenal struggled in this game to play. I thought a lot of players were loose in this game. The tone was set very early with one or two sloppy passes, which I felt encouraged Chelsea, give them that bit of encouragement that they needed at the start of the game. Arsenal weren't knocking the ball around with their normal authority, and that encouraged Chelsea. I thought Chelsea were over physical in the game, got away with a lot. Some of their tackling I thought was, I have to say, near the knuckle, in my opinion. But the referee was very lenient on some of their tackling. But I thought overall, the way Pochettino set them up, with Palmer playing as a false nine, the way they sat back in a 4-4-2, they were very passive off the ball, of course. But they stopped Arsenal playing through them. And my immediate thought in that game was it was a game, I thought, for Arsenal to play long over their press, because they were stopping us from building up. They were like, the wingers were coming very narrow. Gallagher and Palmer were working back almost like 2-10s, and we were struggling to punch it through the midfield to get Odegaard in the game.
I agree with Will. I mean, some of the match stats, this is where we do the show, and I had a good old back and forth with Lee about stats. I think there's a lot of merit to stats. I think sometimes they can just give you a lot of context or support an argument. I've always said, I test first, base an opinion on what you saw in the game, and then see what the stats are. I don't think opinions should be formed of stats. And this is exactly why, because if we have a little look at these match stats, Chelsea had 11 shots to Arsenal's 13, so we outshot them in the game. Didn't feel that way at all. We had 56% possession, or 56.8 to their 43.2. Again, it didn't feel, and we felt like we had a lot of the ball, but it felt like they had spells as well. More passes, but then an XG of 1.6 to 1.2. Of course, the penalty helps that. So that suggests a slightly even game. It didn't feel that way because there were moments where Palmer should have rounded Raya better. Jackson was through on goal, should have done a little bit better as well. There were kind of last minute crosses that were kind of, dealt with by Arsenal. So it felt like Chelsea had a sustained pressure that we were struggling to deal with up to about the 70th minute. Some of the attacking stats suggest again that we entered the final third 50 times, they're 25, that we had just as many deep touches, 22 zone 14 touches, and a field tilt of 64.1%. But again, the game, when you watch it, if I hadn't watched the game and someone showed me this, I'd have thought Oh, Arsenal did well. Arsenal gave it a good go against a good Chelsea team that, despite where they are on the table, are improving under Pochettino, played some good football.
Can I come in on that, James?
Absolutely, please do.
I'll just try and explain that to you. I thought the first half, we were trying to play our box midfield, and we're going to go into this, and we were struggling to get overloads through midfield, right, with the way that they were set up, right? I think the reason why we improved our stats, if you can argue that we improved in the game, was the way Arteta did respond at the start of the second half, and we're going to show that today. The way he went more to a 3-4-3 diamond, moved White high and got Saka inside more. So we did improve in our shape to give us more in the game.
So do you think the stats are elevated by the second half?
The second half I thought we got better. But Chelsea still had chances at 2-0. They scored a very fortunate second goal. I know
that's true.
Mudrik's claiming he meant it. I just can't believe that.
No, I agree.
But they had chances to go 3 up and kill the game. And Palmer was, I thought, excellent in the game. He's a top talent and he played really well in this game. They should have been out of sight before we rallied. And we only rallied, I think, on the back of the Sanchez error that sort of in that last 15 minutes got us going. Then all of a sudden you saw Arsenal playing in the way that we expected in that last 15 minutes. And we very nearly nicked it with Eddie Nketiah going through in that last 5 minutes or so, and he was narrowly wide. So we were playing better as the game went on, which improved the stats. But let's be frank about this. That first half was one of the worst first halves I've seen under Mikel Arteta. And you're talking about stats. Stats back that up. 2 shots at goal in the first half is his 5th lowest in 143 Premier League games he's been in charge. The XG in the first half was only 0.12, the 8th lowest under Arteta. The first half performance was absolutely shocking, and Chelsea were on top.
I couldn't agree more. And again, some of these defensive stats, we tackled them once more with our 18 to their 17. Again, slightly outdid them on interceptions. They cleared the ball 18 times. But this was the one I found really interesting. Passes per defensive action, 24.9 for Chelsea to our 9.4. I didn't feel like we were the pressing team in this game. I felt like they were the ones that suffocated us and forced us into errors and stopped our box midfield playing. Well, but again,
the answer to that is, of course, simply this, and that is they allowed Saliba and Gabriel to have the ball. They sat off Gallagher and Palmer, who were playing, as I say, more forward, were happy to sit back and allow Arsenal to have the ball. It was a problem for Saliba and Gabriel, who were very unsettled. Last week you saw how good they were against Haaland. Haaland is a top centre forward, it suited Saliba. This game, Chelsea were very cute, the way Palmer played as that false 9, but he was also coming more to the right. His average match position suggested he played closer to Sterling. What they were doing really well first half, and Arsenal was struggling, was they were waiting for transitions and they were using Sterling's pace on the right hand side in behind Zinchenko. Zinchenko, we know, likes to invert into that midfield, into that box midfield. Palmer was playing deeper, so it was drawing Gabriel on the left hand side out, creating the space for them to use Sterling's pace, and Arsenal struggled with that in that first half.
Agreed, and some of our attacking numbers support everything we've been saying about, especially that first half. 26 deep passes attempted, only 8 completed, 5 key passes across the whole game, expected goals assisted 0.8, a pass efficiency of 78.8%. The first shot at goal came in the 20th minute, 13 shots on total, but only 3 of them on target, an XG of 1.2, an XG per shot of 0.09, which supports everything we've been saying really about the attacking stats struggling. The players' individual attacking numbers I think are interesting as well, because when you look at some of these, Jorginho ranking pretty high for things like progressive passes and final third entry passes, so he was getting us forward in fairness. I did feel his lack of athleticism and ability was a problem at times, especially when you got the energy of Gallagher, Caicedo and Enzo, but on the ball he kind of did okay. But when you look at some of the other players, Ødegaard, Jesus, not getting the ball into the final third, not getting passes into the box, not contributing with progressive passes, which you normally see them do because they bring the likes of Saka and Martinelli into the game.
That was the shape that Pochettino managed to sort of employ, that sort of with his 2 wingers tucked in very narrow. He stopped us from playing through them.
Shall we show it?
Yeah,
Shall we
of course.
start?
And just one thing before you do that. I thought Martin Ødegaard possibly had one of his worst ever, and I love Martin Ødegaard, but he had possibly one of his...
It's on the back of your shirt.
He's on the back of my shirt, so there you go.
There you go.
He had one of his worst performances in an Arsenal shirt. He was very loose, he was trying to force it. What I'm used to Ødegaard doing when he gets the ball, he just keeps the possession going, he sort of makes the right pass, and he gets that sort of movement up high with Saka going. He didn't do that on Saturday.
No, he didn't at all. So, do the usual thing. Right, we put Arsenal into their box midfield. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, this is what I think Arteta has a lot of advantages in this game. We have got technically better footballers than Chelsea at the moment, and we've got our project is more further advanced than Chelsea. They're just trying to build a new team. Chelsea have players out injured. So what he wants is a 3v2 build-up from the back. He wants an overload in midfield, and then he wants our 5 lanes up high against their 4. So he wants overloads right across all 3 areas of the pitch. So in this, you've got Ben White would drop back into the 3 with Saliba and Gabriel. Zinchenko, we know, likes to invert. So there's your box midfield to give him the advantage over their 3. So you've got Jorginho on the right, you've got Zinchenko on the left, Rice and Odegaard. So if you look at their 3, James, they've only got 3 in there, Enzo, Caicedo and Gallagher. Seemingly, we've got a 4v3 advantage with our box midfield. That's what he wanted. So we would dominate the midfield, but it didn't quite work out like that. And the reason why is, as I explained to you when we come up today and we were talking about it, is the role of Palmer.
Yeah.
Palmer, he asked Palmer and Gallagher to go man-to-man on Jorginho and Zinchenko. Enzo and Caicedo went man-for-man on Odegaard and Rice. So now it's 4v4 in there instead of 4v3. He was very wily, Pochettino. He knew how Arsenal wanted to build up with the box midfield, so he countered it immediately, and that gave them an advantage. And also he asked his wingers to tuck in, to be very narrow, which congested the space. Arsenal had to go out wide, but didn't have Ben White in that first half to get up to support Saka. So ultimately, Saka, who was very well looked after by Cucurella in the first half, and Gusto was very good on Martinelli, Arsenal was struggling to progress the ball to get their 5 lanes up high.
Well, that probably explains the passes per defensive action thing, though, because
they settle.
if you're going to basically allow this back 3 to have the lot of the ball, that's where the stats are going to be slightly skewed, because I felt when it did come in field, Jorginho, Zinchenko, Rice and Odegaard did not feel like they had much time.
No, they didn't. And I think the thing is they were being, although Chelsea was sort of, the numbers are very high in passes per defensive action, means that they weren't pressing much. They were stopping the ball, getting through. Arsenal made one slight adjustment in the first half. Jorginho came more back to try and get on the ball, to try and draw Enzo out. But overall, Arsenal had no joy in build-up.
No, you're right. And we did sort of start to see that in the second half. As you said, Jorginho was coming out at times. White, they were trying to see if they could at least overlap and go around if they're not going to play through them. But Arteta did make more sort of tweaks going into the second half. So Arteta did try and address the half-time. You know, we couldn't get through him. First thing he did was take Zinchenko off, which I thought was interesting. If we take him off and just bring on Tomiyasu, but it wasn't just a personnel change, because I thought, okay, you're trying to get some physicality in the back 4. Zinchenko's on the yellow, I can understand it. There was more to it than that as well, Graham.
Yeah, I think what he tried to do was he changed shape. I mean, we were struggling to play through them. They'd matched up us in midfield, so we didn't have the overload. So he went more, what I thought was more to a 3-4-3 diamond, James, to give us an extra man in midfield over their 3.
Now, you were sort of saying to me beforehand that involved Saka coming inside to therefore allow Ben White to come out wide, and then we saw Jorginho often dropping in that space, and Tomiyasu looking like a lone.
Yeah, that's he was the base of a diamond, I thought. I mean, when teams are playing a false 9, I think one of the things to get round it is, I think, to get your fullback high. And he wasn't doing that first half so much, Ben White. Immediately started the second half going high, and the first thing he did was he gave the ball away. Gallagher took it on, played it to Mudryk, and they scored because Jorginho was out of position here. He couldn't get back, and they scored. But that showed Arteta's intention right from the start of the second half, the way he wanted to play, to get this overload. And so what you've got here, you've got this midfield diamond 4 now. You've got Tomiyasu at the base, you've got Saka, Odegaard, and Rice. That's your 4. And immediately it gives him a 4v3 advantage over Enzo, Caicedo, and Gallagher. You know, Palmer obviously was here on Tomiyasu, but you've got that 4v3 advantage. And then I think what he wants then is White to go high, and you've got your 3 lanes. You've got Martinelli out wide on the left, you've got White out wide on the right, and you've got Jesus through the middle. And he's stuck with this sort of formation pretty much for most of the second half. He just made 1 or 2 tweaks to it in personnel.
And then he makes more changes. So Havertz, Smith Rowe, Nketiah, Trossard all come on. So the players coming off: Jesus, Martinelli, Odegaard comes off, and Jorginho comes off. So Tomiyasu ends up moving into the back 3 with Saliba. I mean, he was part of the defence
Rice
anyway.
comes back more as the DM now.
Yeah.
And then you've got Havertz coming up here and Smith Rowe. And then you've got Trossard on the left. Now, this was very interesting because I thought the way we ended the game, we talked about at the start of the show about the stats improving as the game went on. I thought we were better in this shape with this personnel, James. And the reason for that was I thought the performance of Declan Rice here, because I thought he really started putting the strings in that last 20 minutes, not just because he scored that goal and he reacted quickly, and that was a brilliant finish, by the way.
It was a fantastic
everyone's
finish.
blaming the keeper, and it was an error by Sanchez, but a brilliant finish by Rice. But I thought he was better at the number 6 in this, better than anyone in that position. And what we had now is with White high occupying them, so then Saka could come inside. And I think the other advantage we had was the role of Kai Havertz. Now he's much undermined, Kai Havertz. I know a lot of people don't like him, but he came on for that last 20 minutes. And we then had something that we didn't have before. We had a focal point up top, someone we could go long over their press if we needed, and someone who could take the ball down, lay it off like he did for Saka when we scored our goal, or compete in aerial duels. He won 3 of his 5 aerial duels. And I thought, although Smith Rowe was a bit loose with his passing in this role, didn't probably have much effect, I thought Trossard, who's a brilliant impact player, came on and gave them problems on that side. So I thought this shape, 3-4-3, the last 20 minutes, albeit we needed the help from the keeper to get back in it, it looked better to me, and that's where we started getting more control in the game.
They definitely showed a little bit more intensity and bite, Smith Rowe and Havertz. They were trying to get into the Chelsea midfield a bit quicker. Rice at the base was setting a good tone for that. It's a fantastic goal from Rice. But like you said, the impact of Arteta's subs, I don't want to overdo this, because in my opinion, and maybe I'm sounding too negative, I didn't feel like Arteta, I agree he made these tweaks. I agree he made the subs and Trossard ultimately scores, and credit to them. We did better after those subs. I didn't feel like Arteta pulled off a piece of genius, like his changes suddenly gave us control of a game we didn't have control of. I still think ultimately Sanchez makes the error and that gets us away back in. I still ultimately think Saka's moment of quality, with Trossard, gets us in. And okay, he brought Trossard on, so there's a bit of credit there. I felt really the bigger thing was Arsenal players having actually a mental sturdiness to say we're not playing well, but okay, a moment's happened here, or we're in and around their penalty area, let's try show some quality, and we found a way back in. He gave us a better platform to play with some of these subs.
That's the key line.
But I didn't feel like suddenly last 25 minutes we looked like the Arsenal we
took advantage of their error, and I think that galvanised the team. Declan Rice was really honest after the game. He said how poor we played in the structure first half. We were sloppy. But he said once we got that goal back into it, the game at 2-1, it sort of like, it drove Arsenal forward. And ultimately, one thing we're very good at, James, is, and we've seen it this season, Arsenal finish games very well. They score a lot of late goals. I don't think there's many teams that score many more late goals than us anymore. The team never give up. It's a great attitude to have. They wouldn't have been happy with this performance. And I understand when they went into the dressing room after the game, the players were really quiet because they knew they had played poorly. And that's a great attribute for a team to have. They knew they played poorly. But the one thing they have got is resilience. And when you give them something to hold on to, and then they go for it. And they seized the moment on Saturday. They hadn't been great. They were heading for defeat. I think that had that mistake from Sanchez not happened, you could argue that we would have lost the game. But the moment we got that goal back, the team suddenly then sort of sensed the moment, and that's what great teams do. And when you're not playing well, James, and when you've been poor, to come away with a point is what great teams do.
I agree, and there's definitely something to be said for that. But Arteta's subs across the season have generally been used very well. We talked about the game of chess with Pep Guardiola, how he reacted every time. He knew that it was a game for Tomiyasu when Doku came on. He understood how to tweak it and constantly respond to the first 10 minutes going wrong or every Pep move. And you said some really sort of interesting and great insight here. Leandro Trossard came off the bench to rescue a point for Arsenal. 5 of Arsenal's 19 goals in the 9 Premier League games so far this season have been scored from the bench this season. Overall, Arsenal have had 8 goal contributions from the bench, 5 goals with 3 assists in 9 Premier League games, and only Newcastle and Brighton with 9 goal contribution in each of their 9 games have had more. So Arteta's doing something right with the use of his subs, so credit to him there. I will talk about this man here, David Raya, the goalkeeper situation.
I knew you were going to talk about him today, John.
I know, I'm sorry. It had to come up. It was going to come up. Here he is. Now, what I'm going to do, we haven't recreated the goal, apologies. We've had actually a few technical issues in the filming of this. Big up to production who have got us this far. But I want to talk about David Raya, who's standing around here when the ball comes into the box. And the ball from, let's get this. The ball from Mudryk, this is the movement we're looking at. Something like this. Let's not show it, let's do that again. So he's standing about here, and it goes right into the side netting. Is Raya at fault for this?
Yes.
100%.
Look, I'll be honest with you, I've said it myself. I think Mudryk is attempting a cross there. When you've signed for Chelsea for a lot of money and you haven't scored any goals, and you score one, you're going to milk it, aren't you? And that's what he did. He basically turned around and said he'd been told.
It's his second, but yeah.
He'd been told by his coach that Raya's positioning is always aggressive, and so he knew that would be the case, and he meant that. I just can't believe that.
No, he didn't.
I don't think he did. He
didn't look up once.
Look. So you could argue Raya was slightly unlucky in the fact that Mudryk, I think, attempted a cross and it went over him into the goal. But his positioning there, for me, for a cross, is all wrong. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see my goalkeeper there when a guy's got the ball out there. I want him more central. They had two forwards in the box here, Palmer and Sterling, being marked by Tomiyasu and Gabriel, right? So I want him to come and take that. I don't want him to be there. I want him to be here.
Here's my thing, right? I've said it on Forever Arsenal Fan Cam full time. How proactive a goalkeeper should be is determined by their ability to get back. So if he can stand on the halfway line, but he's the Flash from... I'm a Marvel fan, I don't watch all the other superhero films. And he can get back in time and react, I don't care. But the point is, I always think you should be able... How far you come, if he wants to stand here, I don't care, as long as you can get back. I would think, and when we do these shows, I'm always very careful. I'm like, I've never been a goalkeeper. I feel that as someone who's played the game and done a bit of coaching here and there, I feel like I can somewhat reasonably comment on the positioning of other players and certain... With goalkeepers, I find it difficult to have an opinion. I've never been a goalkeeper, nor am I a goalkeeping coach. I would think be more in line with your near post, slightly deeper, and therefore if something comes near post, you can get low to it. We saw Ramsdale make a great save in the Community Shield from a Rodri header because he was able to get low to the near post, that kind of thing. But he stands much further out, much further from the goal and higher up the pitch as well. Not quite up to the full 6-yard line, but nearly. Now, I want to show you all something. Let me show you some average positions. I'm going to show you an average positions map on screen right now. On the left, we've got David Raya's average position for the season and Aaron Ramsdale's on the right. Sorry, on the left, David Raya, on the right, Aaron Ramsdale. Now, there's not really a lot in it, but it does look like David Raya's average position looks slightly wider, like he is happier to come into those wider areas. Remember, Raya's played 5 games, Ramsdale's played 4. So actually, it's a really good time to start comparing the two. Suggests to you that Raya does want to come further off his line to get more involved and be a bit more proactive. Also want to show you this, the FBref goalkeeping stats and percentile ranking. Raya has stopped 17.5% of crosses. That puts him in the 98th percentile. Ramsdale only 6%. Defensive actions outside the penalty area, 2.4 for Raya, almost double Ramsdale's 1.29. And average distance of defensive actions, 19.4 yards to 16.7 yards. And look, he ranks in the 98th, 93rd and 90th percentile. David Raya for all those things. Ramsdale quite a way off. So this is not me saying Ramsdale isn't as good as David Raya. I'm just putting evidence out there to suggest that Raya is clearly being told, be more proactive, deal with things quicker, take the load off your centre-backs when it comes to defending your penalty area. That's all well and good, but our team's going to start noticing that. And yeah, maybe Mudryk didn't mean it, but maybe they're going to find a way to exploit that particular tactic because he is someone who plays a lot of his football further from his goal than Ramsdale.
But does he have to stand there to actually do that? Why can't he stand just 2 yards further back?
Well, and this isn't a defence of Raya. It's not. I'm just trying to say that.
So are you blaming Arteta?
Well, two things could be true, which is that Arteta wants Raya to be further from his goal, but maybe Raya misjudged his positioning on that one. I don't know. You could also just say, look, it's pure luck and it's a bit of a freak moment. I think the theory is, this is the theory in my opinion. Arteta and Iñaki Kanya are looking at Raya's positioning and going, well, how many times is a Mudryk goal of that can be scored? Once every 100 games, maybe? Like, it's a complete freak. He says it's on purpose, I don't believe him. But even if it is on purpose, to pull that off with your weaker foot, bit of a freak moment. I think the theory will be, more often than not, Raya's going to claim whatever comes into the area, job done, it's going to stop a striker getting his head on it, going to alleviate the pressure off his defenders, he's going to give us a chance to counter-attack as well, and actually it's worth the risk. I think that's the theory. But I still don't like his position.
Well, I just can't see, you're not showing it on this graphic here, but you got Sterling and Palmer.
Yeah, Gabriel and
Thomas are the defenders. He had two Chelsea forwards in here.
Palmer and Sterling.
Palmer and Sterling. I think it's the other. I think Sterling's more over that side, James, if I remember correctly. But it's irrelevant. The point I'm trying to make here is, if he wants to come and claim the cross, if Mudryk's going to sling it in towards them, he's going to sling it in here for them to attack, isn't he? Mm-hmm. So why does he need to be 2 yards further forward to that side of the goal?
That's fair enough.
If he's 2 yards back, he can still come and take the ball.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that. I really don't understand it. It is a freak goal. Mm-hmm. But the problem with that, what that does now to Raya, we saw how it affected him afterwards. It affected his confidence massively. Immediately he made another error, and he was all over the place. He gave the ball to Palmer. He did well to retrieve it. But all of a sudden, he's putting himself under pressure. Now, when you come into a big club, he's not playing for Brentford now. He's playing for Arsenal. And no disrespect to Brentford. I've got a few Brentford mates, right? But he's playing for Arsenal. That's a big club. He's under pressure. And to be honest with you, you want to make a good start in any position. He'd started well for 2 games. Mm-hmm. His form started to dip. He made an error against Lens. He made an error against Tottenham. He nearly gave a goal away against Manchester City. And all of a sudden now, he's under pressure. You'd think, let's go back to getting the basics right, because you don't want to keep making mistakes. I understand Arteta wants him to be proactive, but I just couldn't understand why he needed to be there. I think he's just mentally made a mistake. I honestly believe he's 2 yards further across there by mistake. It's nothing to do with being proactive. He's decided mentally, for some reason, he's made a mistake mentally. He's just gone across that side of the goal, and Mudryk's fluked it. And that's what I think. And now all of a sudden he's under enormous pressure. I know the numbers support the fact that he's proactive, that he's more further from his goal and everything. The one thing I'll say in his defence, I'll say one other thing actually, I don't know if you know this stat. He's actually now, and he faced a penalty in the first half from Carlton Palmer, he's now conceded all 7 of his penalties. 6 for Brentford and 1 for Arsenal. All 7 he's faced, he's conceded. Only Marshall...
We got onto Ramsdale about, didn't we?
We go. So Ramsdale used to struggle to stay penalties. This guy, only Marshall, a goalkeeper who played, I think, for Cardiff and Hull, as worst numbers. He let in all 9 of the 9 he faced. So he's under pressure now. He's under pressure. So why put yourself under further pressure? One thing I will add on Aaron Ramsdale, because all of a sudden, sometimes when you're not playing in the game, suddenly you come out of games better, don't you? And now he's sort of going to start knocking Arteta's door, isn't he? But I do remember a game last year, I think it was against Aston Villa at the Emirates, I was there, when his positioning was all over the place from a corner, and Villa scored from a corner. I can't remember who took the corner, it swung in, he wasn't in the correct position, they scored. There was an argument, was he fouled or impeded, but he wasn't in the correct position. So I think that's why Arteta doesn't want goalkeepers to be bullied, he wants goalkeepers to be proactive. But I can't understand why he would be 2 yards across that box for that action.
To sum up, the reason I bring this up, because I can read the comments already in my head. Stop making excuses for Raya. It's a rare mistake. What I'm saying is, I think, in my humblest of opinions, that he's too far off his goal line, and he's not just this way too far. He's that way too far, in my opinion. So the fact that he can't get back, I think, basically a third of the blame is on Raya for his position. He doesn't look right. I do think a third of the reason why this goal happened is just complete luck. I mean, he's literally kind of floated it and lifted it right into the side netting. That's it's a pretty bloody good goal, whether he meant it or not. And I do think a final third goes to Arteta and the coaching staff, where, again, just for this goal alone, I'm not saying that this doesn't reap more reward and benefits in 99% of other moments in the game, but I think there is instruction clearly to be really brave and slow on the ball to invite the pressure and invite the press and therefore try and play out, but B, to have a starting position. That means that Gabriel, Tomiyasu, Saliba, whoever it might be, they're not heading out for a corner. They're not heading it back out into a dangerous area. They're not heading it back out to then have to sustain another wave of pressure. They're saying, goalkeeper, get it, done. Defensive duties carried out for the next minute or so. And I just think, while I think Raya has got his position a little bit wrong, I feel like there's more to it than just him going, oh, I'm going to just stand over here. I don't know. I feel like he can consider himself a little unlucky.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you there. He was a little unlucky, but I stick to what I say, and that is I just can't understand why he was 2 yards across that side of his goal. I do think it was a fluke, despite what Mudryk says. And it does now, what this does now ignites the debate.
Well, who would you start?
Raya and Ramsdale. Well, I think Arteta's boxed himself into a really difficult position now, because he turned around and said that he was bringing Raya in to compete with Ramsdale and it'd be on performance. Now, if that's the case, then he's got to bring Ramsdale back against Seville this week, because Raya hasn't been playing well enough, you could argue. So he's boxed himself into a real position now. But my view on it is, I honestly believe he brought Raya in, despite what he said to the media, because we all know when he reveals his team selections or injury updates to the media, he's not always, he lets them guess and he doesn't sort of like tell them the truth, so to speak. And I think it's the same with the goalkeeping position. I don't think, and I don't know what conversations are going on with him and his two goalkeepers, what he said to Ramsdale. I think he's got a lot of respect for Ramsdale. He said it again on Saturday. But I think he sees Raya as the number one. And I don't think he's going to change him at the moment. The more that the press keeps saying this, bringing this up, he's going to, you know, he's very stubborn. But I think he's boxed himself into a corner, because basically he said it's got to be on performance. Yeah. And when you've got two, that's the problem you have when you have two goalkeepers who are roughly the same level. You know, because one's, you know, Ramsdale's going to be banging his, if I was Ramsdale, once I've tucked my baby in the morning and said, kiss my wife goodbye.
Congratulations, by the way.
Congratulations to Aaron on that. I'll be running up to Arteta, banging on his door and saying, I want to play on Tuesday. Would you not?
Yeah, well, of course I would. I'd be furious. If Cecil was stepping in to do tactical insight, making a mess of it for 3 weeks in a row, I'd be knocking on Robbie's door saying, give me the show back. Yeah. Look, here's where I am on the debate. I think if you're going to make it a fair fight, make it a fair fight. Ramsdale shouldn't have to do more than Raya to get the spot, because I don't believe there's much in it between them. Raya's had some shaky moments. Get Ramsdale, and this is 3 games in a row now. Lens, City and Chelsea came away with, well, a win, a draw and a defeat and a clean sheet against City, fair enough. I think Ramsdale deserves certainly the Sevilla game, maybe the game on the weekend as well, because it's at home and all that. I do think if you're going to bring in David Raya for 30 million, you're going to disrupt what you've got with Aaron Ramsdale. You know, you're going to give the back four a new goalkeeper to get used to. What he should be bringing should be levels. I should be watching and going, okay, maybe he got lobbed. Maybe he doesn't look as good a shot stopper as Ramsdale, but his passing looks immaculate. And wow, it gets us from one end of the pitch to the other superbly. We did analyse on the tactical insight for PSV how brilliant his long passes, especially to Havertz, were. Superb. You know, I need to see that more regularly than not. By the moment, it's not that regular. I think Raya needs to look, in terms of claiming crosses and dominating his area, he needs to look comfortably levels above what we're seeing from Ramsdale. But because he's not, and I've seen that Ramsdale can be a fantastic shot stopper and big game player, like Villa away, like Newcastle away, like Tottenham away, like Liverpool away, where he pulls off worldly saves, I just think if it's not a massive level up in terms of the distribution and the cross claim and all that, I'd rather stick to the goalkeeper who's better at keeping the ball out their net. And at the moment, Ramsdale's looking that more. But am I absolutely writing off Raya? No way, it's way too early. Raya could well be the better goalkeeper, and I'm still very open to seeing that. But at the moment, he's had a few moments. Ramsdale's done nothing wrong. Give it a fair fight. Ramsdale comes in. And everyone keeps saying, yeah, but the back four will be disrupted. And come on, they're both good goalkeepers. They should be able to deal with it, the back four. And that's where I sit on it.
And it's an interesting debate, and we'll see how it plays out in the week, won't we? When he makes his selection for the Seville game.
We will find out very soon. Round-up stats.
Round-up stats, James, very quickly then. Arsenal are still unbeaten in London derbies since the start of last season. That's played 16, won 11, draw 5 now.
That's
so we're
good.
Still unbeaten in London derbies, although Saturday it looked like that run was coming to an end. Leonardo Trossard is the first ever player to score his first 3 Premier League goals for Arsenal as a substitute. Did you know that?
I did not.
As I said earlier, David Raya has now conceded all 7 penalties he has faced in the Premier League. 6 out of 6 he let in for Brentford, now 1 out of 1 for Arsenal. As I said, David Marshall, who played for Cardiff, Hull, Derby and Norwich, has conceded more. He let in 9 out of 9. Declan Rice's goal that got Arsenal back in the game came from 36.6 yards out. It's the longest range goal on record by an Arsenal player since records started in 2006-2007. And finally, James, on Saturday, one of our star forwards made his 100th Premier League appearance for the club. A very special player. Do you know who that was?
Kaisak?
Martinelli.
Martinelli.
He made his 100th appearance for the club on Saturday, and although he didn't have, he was probably, we have to mention, I thought he was one of our better players on Saturday.
He worked really hard.
But anyway, that's the closing stats for this week, James.
There we go. All right, everyone. What to say? We salvaged a point where maybe we didn't deserve it, but we showed a degree of resilience. Take the positives from it. Big thank you to Graham, as always. Big thank you to everyone who's been tuning into the show. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this. Go check out all the other content. And No Time to Breathe. Tomorrow, it's Sevilla, and that is a big game. Probably our toughest on paper game in the group stage of the Champions League. And after the defeat to Lens, a lot of pressure on Arsenal to come away with something at least. Otherwise, they start to really lose control of the group. But we will be keeping you up to date with every kick of a ball and every single moment as it happens during the game on Tuesday night. Graham, many, many thanks.
Just quickly, Raya in goal for you?
No, I'd give it Ramsdale.
Will he be in goal?
No, it'd be Raya.
You think Raya will be in goal?
Yeah, we'll go with Raya.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Catch you in a bit.